Ridicule plagued the girl because of a birthmark that marred her face, but everything shifted when an elderly grandmother stepped in, altering the girl's destiny in a way she never imagined. "Oh, honey, why does life have to be so harsh on you?" Evelina wrapped her arms around her daughter, who hurried home in tears once again. Those boys, with their stones and insults, tore at her heart. The poor girl cried uncontrollably, and Evelina felt utterly helpless. They were strangers in this town, driven away by her husband's wrath. Seeking shelter, Evelina remembered her aunt's old cottage nearby. It had been years since she last saw it, but she prayed it was still livable. 3 years back, Evelina was happily married, looking forward to motherhood. Harry, her husband, cherished her deeply. Their love story was against all odds. Having grown up in an orphanage, Evelina had nothing to call her own. Her parents' fate remained a mystery, though she remembered a stern old woman visiting her in her childhood. While others trembled in her presence, Evelina found solace in her gaze. She felt an inexplicable bond, as though this woman were a long-lost grandmother. Then, the elderly figure vanished, leaving Evelina to ponder her abrupt departure. It wasn't until years later that Evelina uncovered the truth. They had banished her, fearing her unsettling effect on others. With her memory fading, Evelina realized she may never see her again. Then, fate intervened, introducing her to Harry. Amidst life's hardships, Harry brought warmth and companionship. He wooed her with grace, only to face his mother's wrath when he introduced Evelina. Disgusted by her son's choice, she cast Evelina out, forcing her to flee. Yet, Harry's determination prevailed, eventually bridging the gap between them. Despite Evelina's initial reluctance, Harry's persistence won her over. Now, in a state-provided apartment, Evelina found stability amidst life's chaos. Harry started staying over at her place, and eventually, Evelina gave in. They quietly got married, no frills, and started their life together in the apartment. They hustled, and within a year, they sold her place, pooled their savings, and snagged a 2-bedroom flat. That's when his mum showed up again. But she wasn't about to welcome Evelina with open arms. She acted like she owned the place, constantly reminding Evelina that without Harry, she'd still be scraping by. At first, Evelina shed tears, but she toughened up. She couldn't keep dumping her problems on Harry. He was busting his butt at work, tired as hell. He wanted a cozy home, not constant bickering. Another year rolled by. Evelina got pregnant, and oh, the chaos that ensued. His mum went off saying she didn't want grandkids like that. Who knew what kind of lowlifes this homeless girl's parents were? Maybe they were drunks, killers, or worse. Why bring up such issues? It's like expecting a pear tree to bear apples. No amount of upbringing can change someone's inherent nature. Sometimes you just have to let things be. Evelina had reached her breaking point. In a rare moment, she stood up to her mother-in-law, asserting her boundaries. No one's forcing you to be around the grandkids. You're not obligated to visit. You'd probably be happier staying home peacefully. Apparently, Evelina and Harry had their first serious argument. "Evelina, what were you thinking? Mum said you threatened her." Evelina hadn't taken it seriously, responding casually, "Well, I didn't harm her." "Don't you dare! Do you understand? Don't even raise your voice at my mom." Harry reacted, rising from his seat and gripping her hand tightly. "Harry, have you lost your mind? So she can insult me and our child any time, and I'm not allowed to defend myself?" Harry released her hand abruptly. "I've said my piece." It was then that Evelina felt a deep sense of hurt and regret for selling her apartment. With no way to turn back, they had to navigate forward, especially with the baby on the way. After a week of silence, Harry was the first to extend an apology. "Evelina, I'm sorry, she's my mom. I can't change her, and it's not my place to scold her. Please, just try to ignore her." Evelina felt a wave of relief as they reconciled. "I'll try my best, Harry." Life resumed its rhythm, with his mother-in-law only visiting when Harry was around, toning down her usual antics in his presence. Evelina avoided confrontation, though she rarely had engaged in it before. When the time for childbirth came, they were prepared, despite his mother's grumbling about not buying things ahead of time. They were young. Maybe that was the root of all their troubles. Evelina pondered. Hers and her daughter's. Or was it something else entirely? There were myriad reasons: the constant hostility from her mother-in-law, a presence Evelina felt like a physical weight, and the mysteries of genetics. Regardless, their daughter Vivian came into the world with a conspicuous birthmark nearly spanning her entire face. Harry's reaction was stark. "What's this? It's a birthmark, but how? She'll grow up looking like a freak." "Harry, how could you say that? She's your daughter." Since Evelina returned from the hospital, it seemed like they'd crossed paths with bad luck. Harry avoided the baby, and his mother fueled the tension. "I told you. I knew some sort of monster would come out. This is on you, Harry. Where's your sense? Why won't you listen to your mother?" Evelina clenched her teeth but stayed silent. She knew this secret wouldn't get out. They chipped in for a co-worker's gift, and Evelina stashed that away too. Her goal was to save up for a trip to the city. She believed they could fix those birthmarks there. Little by little, they could make it happen. The trick was to tough it out and save as much as they could. But fate had other ideas. Harry was up for a promotion. He was anxious, waiting eagerly, while Evelina tried to reassure him. "Harry, you're sharp, always respected. It'll all fall into place. Just wait and see." And it did. Harry got the promotion, and they celebrated at a restaurant. Naturally, Evelina couldn't leave the child behind, and her mother-in-law wouldn't help for anything. Plus, Evelina didn't trust her. She'd rather be home herself. Harry was supposed to be back by 8, and Evelina got Vivian ready. She headed out to the yard, waiting for her husband. She pushed the stroller back and forth, but Harry was nowhere in sight. Just as Evelina was about to give up and head home, a taxi pulled up in the yard. Out stumbled her drunken husband, accompanied by some other woman. "Oh, Evelina, meet my new employee, the secretary. Can you believe it? I've got my own secretary now." "Congratulations," Harry exclaimed, but Evelina's joy was nowhere to be found. She knew his behavior wasn't right. "Let's head inside and keep the celebration going," Harry urged. "But Harry, there's a little one inside," Evelina reminded him. "Aren't you happy for your husband?" Harry retorted. "Of course I am," Evelina replied, though her heart sank. With a flinch, she retreated into the house, the drunken duo following behind. Evelina endured the racket as best she could. Vivian, unable to sleep due to the cacophony in the kitchen, finally snapped and confronted them. "Could you keep it down a bit? The baby's trying to sleep." "Baby? What baby?" scoffed Harry, disdain dripping from his words. His companion shot him a puzzled look. "Boss, what are you on about?" She chuckled. "All right, come see for yourself." Harry shoved Evelina aside and dragged the girl into the room where Vivian was sobbing. Evelina tried to block them, but Harry pushed past her, brusquely. The girl let out a horrified scream at the sight of Vivian. "Harry, how can someone as handsome as you have such a freak of a child?" Evelina sat silently in the corner. They continued their revelry in the kitchen for another hour before the door slammed shut. Evidently, Harry's companion had left. Soon after, snores echoed from the room. Sensing trouble, Evelina packed a bag that night, just in case. And her instincts proved right. Harry woke up with a pounding headache. "Evelina, where's breakfast?" Harry sneered. "Why don't you get your new friend to cook? You know, the one who called our kid a freak." He paused, eyes narrowing. And so what if they did? Vivian's not a freak. Why are you getting all riled up over the truth? You've lost whatever humanity you had left. Do you even realize this is your own flesh and blood? He scoffed. Well, that's debatable. My family didn't have freaks, but yours? That's a whole different story. He turned to face her. Harry, don't you dare disrespect me or my daughter. She spat. And why shouldn't I? He shot back. You know what? He squared his shoulders. Evelina, maybe it's time for you and your freak to hit the road. It's embarrassing, living like a sideshow act with monsters. Evelina's tears started to flow. Where will we go? She sobbed. That's your problem now, he retorted. And don't forget, this apartment was mostly bought with my money. His hand swung, connecting with Evelina's cheek. You've got 5 minutes to pack your things. Evelina swiftly dressed Vivian, snatched up her bag, and made a beeline for the door, but Harry snagged her wrist. If you even think about showing up to snatch the apartment from me, just know there'll be one less weirdo in the world. Evelina bolted out of the apartment, pausing in the yard. Now what? Where to go? Then it hit her. Home. Thank goodness she hadn't spilled the beans to Harry, otherwise she'd be forced to sell it too. So here they were, her and Vivian. At first, when Vivian was tiny, no one was the wiser. They just wandered around the yard, going practically nowhere. But then, Evelina realized she needed income. So she spun a tale for the neighbor about being a seamstress in the city. Folks in the village were a tad gentler than city dwellers. They felt sorry for Evelina in their own way. With pity lacing their questions, they'd suggest, maybe you should give up the kid and then settle down, have a normal one. But Evelina simply gritted her teeth. Over time, the villagers grew accustomed to it, but the children never did. Back in school, Vivian endured taunts, and strolling outdoors became a silent nightmare. Vivian, bright as a button, showed exceptional skills by age 7, reading, drawing, writing with finesse, and even mastering counting on her own. While her mum sewed dresses for village girls, Vivian occupied herself arranging sticks on the floor, meticulously counting them. She seldom ventured outside, content as long as the menacing bully, Glenn, stayed away. Despite being 3 years her senior, Glenn tormented her relentlessly, sometimes resorting to physical violence. On this particular day, Vivian rushed home, sporting a bruised forehead and a scraped shoulder. Mum, why am I treated like this? Why am I unloved and despised by everyone? Sweetheart, it's not because of anything you've done wrong. People can be cruel sometimes, honey. You just got to take them as they come, Mum consoled, as her daughter's tears soaked into her lap. But Mum, I haven't done anything wrong, the daughter protested. You just got to accept folks for who they are, Mum reiterated. But I've never harmed anyone. Why? The daughter's sobs filled the room, leaving Evelina at a loss for words. She had tried to stash away some money, but the steep prices for removing birthmarks at the clinic dashed her hopes of saving up anytime soon. As she gently ran her fingers through her daughter's hair, Vivian's cries continued unabated. Eventually, she fell into a quiet slumber, cradled in Evelina's arms. They agreed she could rest for a while. Let Vivian drift into a peaceful slumber, allowing Evelina a moment to collect her thoughts. As she sat there, memories flooded back to a time long ago when she was a new mother in the maternity ward. An elderly nurse had approached her, comforting her as she wept over Vivian. Why the tears, dear? You should be rejoicing. Look at your beautiful girl, the nurse had said. Are you kidding? With this birthmark, she'll face hardships her whole life. Evelina had lamented. No need for that. God marked her so she'd never forget to find joy, to be her happiest self, the nurse had reassured. You're saying the same thing, Evelina had replied. Exactly. They say a big birthmark means the child is blessed by God. You'll see. Your daughter will bring you immense happiness, and you'll find your own joy through her, the nurse had predicted. That would be wonderful, Evelina had sighed. And don't worry too much. Tears won't solve anything, and you're only causing unnecessary distress, the nursey had advised. Evelina suddenly recalled the nurse. Why hadn't the prophecy come true? She silently questioned the nurse's absence. A loud knock shattered the silence, causing Evelina to startle, while Vivian stirred awake, glancing at her mother. Such forceful knocks were unusual for the villagers, who typically entered quietly. "Who's there? Please, come in," Evelina called out. The door creaked open, revealing a peculiar figure, a tall, elderly woman draped in a billowy cloak reminiscent of old films, its constant movement giving the illusion of tattered rags. The woman offered a slight bow. "Greetings, kind hosts. Might you offer shelter to a weary traveler?" Despite her eerie appearance, the woman's gaze softened as she looked at Vivian. "Fear not, child. I've simply lost my way, seeking refuge in a nearby village." Evelina motioned for her to enter. "Ah, you found it. Come in, don't linger at the threshold." "I'll get you a steaming cup of tea in a jiffy." "Thanks, hun." She dug around in her coat and pulled out a big old chocolate bar. "Looking fresh as a daisy, ain't it?" "Here you go, kiddo. Should be mighty tasty, or so the vendor said." "Thanks a bunch." Vivian accepted the chocolate, then couldn't help but wonder, "Why you staring at me so calm-like?" The old lady was taken aback. "Well, why shouldn't I? You ain't no big bad wolf. Besides, if folks want to act foolish, let 'em. You're sharp as a tack. Why bother with 'em?" Vivian grinned. Ain't nobody talked to her so plain and simple, 'cept her ma. Evelina brought over the teacups, then plunked down a bowl of cookies on the table, suddenly asking, "Maybe you're hungry? Made a darn good borscht today." The old lady gazed intently, then shrugged. "Why not? I've seen a lot in my time." They shared a hearty meal together. Later, as Vivian retired for the night, Evelina couldn't resist her curiosity about the mysterious woman's background. She didn't fit the profile of a vagabond, rather she seemed like a character from a fairy tale. "You mentioned searching for this village?" Evelina inquired. "Once my sister lived here, the one cursed by fate. I wondered if she still roams these lands," the old woman replied. "And why this obsession with her?" Evelina pressed, her curiosity piqued. "My sister. She brought ruin upon herself, and upon me and my daughter. Almost everyone, really," the old woman sighed. "It's a long tale, but if you're interested, I'll share." "I'm very interested if you don't mind the trouble," Evelina replied eagerly. "Is it some kind of family secret?" "It was, until 5 years ago. For some reason, our parents favored my older sister over me, neglecting me entirely. She lived like royalty, while I toiled in the fields since age 6. Molly suffered too, her little hands and legs bearing the brunt of it all. And as for me, growing up, I endured their treatment silently, holding on to a single hope. Someday, I'd find a man who'd whisk me away from this family. When my parents passed, I was 17, and Molly, already in her 20s, was dubbed an old maid. Suitors lined up for her, attracted by our prosperous farm, but Molly rejected them all, finding fault in their noses or something else. Our mother never witnessed her favorite daughter's wedding, passing away with a stern warning to watch over Molly. But I refused to follow her path, declaring the era of maidens over. That's when things took a turn. Oh, how our mother raged. She couldn't even boil soup, let alone find a match for herself. Then, a year later, Stan proposed to me. He was handsome, wealthy, and utterly charming. I fell for him, and he for me. Molly was beside herself with anger. Little did I know, Stan harbored affections for her too. enough to consider marrying her seriously. Turns out he fancied her too, enough to think about marrying her seriously. She cursed up a storm, but Stan and I brushed it off, which was a big mistake. We should have taken those threats more seriously. Anyhow, Molly sought out an old witch grandmother. Those folks existed back then. She got herself a love potion and fed it to Stan. I had no clue about any of this. At first, I watched Stan transform right in front of me, turning into this rude, cocky guy. 3 days before our wedding, he cornered me in the barn and did the unthinkable. And Molly witnessed it all laughing, promising to spill the beans to the entire village. I had no option but to hightail it to the city to dodge the disgrace, and in the city I discovered I was carrying his child. When the time came to deliver, I returned to the village to confront Stan. Something had to be done, considering the kid was his flesh and blood. But he greeted me with ice in his veins, claimed he'd tied the knot with Molly 2 months prior, that he was happy, and I was just a nobody to him. I wept, asking what I should do next. Then, my sister burst onto the porch, gun in hand. She fired at my feet, a stone ricocheting off, striking my face. I shielded myself instinctively, though it's not wise when expecting. So I fled to the city, empty-handed. A week later, I welcomed a beautiful daughter into the world, albeit with a minor imperfection. Gratitude to the woman who sheltered me upon my arrival. She provided warmth, employment. She was like a mother. Her passing brought torrents of tears, unlike even my own mother's demise. Brittany and I eked out a quiet existence. I toiled, encountered a decent man. Brittany, 18 then, accepted his proposal. I wasn't too old, so we welcomed a son. Then, tragedy struck, its origins a blur. Molly appeared battered and begged me to take Stan. He's head over heels for you, wants you and your girl to move in with him. I chuckled. Are you nuts, Molly? I'm hitched. My girl's all grown up, about to tie the knot herself. And I've got a son, remember? But she gave me this strange look. How could you turn him down? Aren't you feeling for your sister? Why should I feel sorry for you? Did you ever feel sorry for me? You've got it all wrong, so wrong, you'll all regret it. And she stormed off. But little did I know it'd spiral like this. Brittany wedded, had a kid, and on their first outing as a family, they were attacked. To cut it short, they perished, and the baby was snatched. I nearly lost my mind then. Or perhaps I did, forgot everything, my hubby, my boy. I roamed the streets for hours, crying out for my granddaughter, for my girl. Silence was all I got. Did 3 stints in a loony bin, but they always let me out. 'Cause besides the crushing sorrow, I was clean. So I drifted. One fateful day, I crossed paths with Molly. Her gaze bore into me with a twisted satisfaction as she spat her venomous words. Enjoying the suffering, sister. You've earned it. It's yours for life. With that, she vanished, leaving behind a chilling revelation. I realized she had snatched away my granddaughter, stealing my daughter's future in the process. I was a stranger to myself, adrift in a sea of anguish. As clarity slowly returned, I found myself abandoned by those I once trusted. Yet, as time passed, there were glimmers of hope. Stan, unaware of Molly's deeds, approached me on bended knee, begging for forgiveness. But what solace is his repentance when my girls are gone forever? Molly, struck by my blow, lost her memory and was deemed unfit. In my wanderings, I chanced upon a girl at an orphanage, a spitting image of my Alia, unmarred by fate's cruelty. I couldn't resist visiting her, but my past incarceration led to a swift banishment by the orphanage director. I've tried countless times, but it feels like hitting a brick wall. Then my son got into business and whisked me away from our small town. Just a month back, I returned, hoping to uncover something, anything. Which house did your sister reside in? Well, here's the kicker. I haven't a clue. She up and moved to the village when she turned 50. I couldn't fathom she'd lose her memory and get herself into trouble, but I was distant. Just found out she lived around here, so I thought I'd dig around. Hold on. My aunt stumbled upon me in the orphanage when I was 15. She either didn't know or didn't care to share anything. Just muttered about my parents' demise. We never really kept in touch. She was odd. There's this memory of an album somewhere, but Evelina dashed out of the room. Now it's crystal clear. That old lady and the one who visited her are one and the same. But how many moons have passed since then? Back then, she was already an old lady. Evelina came back with the album. "Here, take a peek. Haven't had a chance to look myself, been swamped," she said, cautiously flipping it open. "Well, hey there, Molly, you sly dog." Evelina froze, perplexed. Was this really her grandma standing in front of her? "You're the one who found me at the orphanage. The moment I saw you, I knew I was in good hands. Why?" She pointed at a photo. "Here she is with Brittany, your mum." Evelina circled the table, letting out a scream. A girl of about 10 stared back at her, a large birthmark on her face. "When I saw Vivian, I wanted to rush to you, but I didn't want to scare her. Can't rush these things. So I'm laying it all out for you now. Forgive us, Evelina, for the rough ride. Forgive Vivian. We're all in this together now. It's going to be all right. But I'm puzzled. How'd you end up here in the boonies if you weren't in touch with your aunt? It's a tale as old as time." I tied the knot. His ma, she wasn't having it. She called me all sorts, labeled me a tramp, cursed my genes, warned against bearing kids. And when Vivian came into the world with her little birthmark, that's when it all began. They flung insults every which way, branded her with names. I traded my apartment for a bigger pad, thinking it'd shelter us better. But he tossed us onto the pavement, leaving us stranded. Thank the heavens for my aunt and this roof over our heads. Can you believe it? Kicking a wife and babe to the curb. We'll teach 'em what true justice means." Evelina glanced at the elder woman, though the spark in her eyes defied any notion of old age. "What's your handle, ma'am?" "So, you're the grandma." "And Vivian's great-granny. Name's Beatrix. I've rambled on too much. Mind showing me where to crash. We'll chat come sunrise. You know, it'd warm my heart if you'd just call me Grandma." Evelina rose, and the woman followed suit. Evelina couldn't fathom how she ended up in her embrace. Yet, she embraced her back, tears streaming down her cheeks. Turns out it's pretty comforting to know you're not flying solo in this big old world. You've got a grandma, even if she's a bit on the vintage side. And, somewhere out there, an uncle lurks, theoretically not much older than Evelina herself. The lady stepped back, dabbing her eyes. "Okay, keep it together. Time for a phone call," she muttered, whipping out a slick smartphone from her pocket, leaving Evelina tongue-tied. Beatrix trotted outside, while Evelina wrestled with the couch. The night crawled by, thoughts swirling in Evelina's head, her eyelids refusing to shut, despite Vivian's serene snores nearby. Beatrix seemed unfazed too. Evelina chalked it up to travel fatigue, planning an early morning pancake party. She drifted off towards dawn, only to be roused by chatter in the kitchen. Vivian wasn't around. Evelina leapt up and dashed out of the room. There sat Vivian at the table, munching on an omelette, with Beatrix by her side. No headscarf, just a regular dress, though maybe not entirely ordinary. Evelina, being a seamstress, had an eye for clothing, and this dress screamed pricey. "Hey, you awake, honey? Sorry, I didn't sleep a wink last night. Felt like I got hit by a truck come morning." "What's with the apologies, Evelina? Quit saying sorry for everything. This is your life, live it. Remember that." "All right, you had breakfast? I can whip something up." "Already had ours. Made it with you in mind. Take a seat, relax. I'll brew us some tea." "Yeah, I'll handle it. Sit tight, you'll have your chance. They hadn't even finished breakfast when Beatrix's phone chimed. Yeah, Simon, third house, on my way. All right, Evelina, brace yourself for family time. How? Evelina's eyes widened and Vivian pulled her into a hug. Oh, come on, it's not that bad. Family, my brother and his crew. Why's everyone acting so skittish? Beatrix shook her head as Evelina and Vivian rushed to the window. A hefty jeep rolled up, a man in his prime leaping out, trailed by a 12-year-old and a knockout woman. She was drop-dead gorgeous, bronzed to perfection. They each greeted their grandma with hugs, then got to unloading bags. Evelina figured it'd be rude to stay holed up inside. Hey, Vivian, you ready to go say hi to the folks? Sure thing, Mum. Think they'll be scared of me? Nah, don't reckon so. Hand in hand, they stepped onto the porch. The man glanced back, catching Evelina's eye, then Vivian's, his grin stretching wide. Well, come here, you two. Let me give you a hug. Dropping the bags, he hurried over, sweeping Evelina into a tight embrace. Without warning, tears sprang to her eyes. Scooping up Vivian, the man looked puzzled. Why's Mom crying? It's okay, Evelina. No need for tears now, he reassured her. But she couldn't seem to stop. Simon's wife and grandmother joined them, tears welling up in their eyes too, setting Vivian off. The man glanced around bewildered, then turned to his son. What do we do? His son just shrugged. Women, right? Let him get it out. Evelina couldn't help but chuckle through her tears at his words. 5 minutes later, they were all laughing, and Simon scratched his head in amusement. Women, they're a mystery, he mused. Just a moment ago, tears, now laughter. Well, well. An hour later found them gathered around the table. Simon's wife, Leslie, and their son, Jack, completed the family circle. Jack and Vivian grew restless, fidgeting at the table while the adults conversed. After a brief distraction with a tablet, Jack proposed an idea. Vivian, how about a stroll? Show me around. Vivian hesitated, recalling past encounters. Nah, let's not. Glenn and his gang might hassle us again. Is that so? Jack's voice held resolve. Yeah, they pick on me, call me names, throw stuff, Vivian replied. Then we definitely should go. You'll be safe with me, Jack reassured, gripping Vivian's hand firmly. Let's go for a walk, Simon interjected. Just for a bit, all right? Okay, Dad? They agreed. As they neared the outskirts of the village, Glenn emerged with his companions. Here comes trouble, he sneered, followed by jeers from the other kids. They grinned. Glenn was the alpha, unbeatable. That's why everyone backed him. Who dare cross Glenn? Jack let go of his hand and stepped toward Glenn. Come on, apologize. Apologize for what? Where'd you come from to defend the underdog? Vivian stood still, weighing her options. If she ran for help, they'd pummel Jack before she could intervene. So she stayed, backing her brother. A fiery exchange ensued between her brother and Glenn. They agreed. Might makes right. Glenn found himself repeatedly hitting the ground, baffled by his inability to stand up to Jack. Laughter turned from covert snickers to open mockery. Enough, Glenn pleaded, finding himself in the dirt once more. He rose, approached Vivian. Sorry, won't happen again, he muttered, then turned to Jack. Where did you learn to fight like that? In the gym. City 1, right? Yeah, from the city. Glenn whistled. Why are you defending her? She's my sister. Yeah, right. Exactly. The whole gang escorted them to Evelina's house. When Evelina saw the whole group through the window, her heart sank. Oh, they must have been beaten again. I shouldn't have let them go. She rushed out onto the street, followed by Simon. Vivian, Jack, are you okay? Evelina rushed to them, feeling them over, but the children looked fine. She couldn't understand how this could be. Then Glenn emerged from the crowd. Aunt Evelina, please forgive us. We won't do it anymore. Simon chuckled. And we won't need you to. We're leaving for the capital tomorrow. Sometimes Evelina didn't understand what was happening around her. They left. And honestly, she didn't regret a single moment leaving this hateful village. Leslie wasted no time whisking them off for a shopping spree the moment they arrived. Evelina felt like they were buying up half the town. Later that evening, Simon dropped a bombshell. Tomorrow's a big day. Vivian's got an appointment at the clinic in the morning, and in the evening, my lawyer buddy's gonna help you reclaim your apartment. You might not need it now, but whoever tossed my niece and her kid out deserves some payback. When Evelina heard the clinic's name, she was at a loss for words. I can't afford that kind of cash. I'm squirreling away, but those prices, insane. Though if I can snag some cash for the apartment from Harry, that's a start. You know, Evelina, Simon mused, locking eyes with her. When I looked at my dear Aunt Olga, you know what I thought? Evelina shook her head. No, Simon grinned. I thought, when I grow up, I'll be a doc who fixes folks up, makes them flawless. And look at me now. Honestly, I may just be a regular doctor, but I've got a knack for business. This clinic, it's mine. And here, nobody's going to nickel and dime you. Evelina couldn't hold back the tears once more. Leslie wrapped her in a comforting hug. Why the tears again? This is great news. Everything's sorted, and yet you're crying. Vivian Lucas stepped out of the courthouse, only to be met by Harry charging toward her. What's your game, huh? Want some shame? I've got plenty to spare. His mother bustled behind him, chiming in. Look at you, all dolled up, Harry. Where'd you scrape together that cash? Probably some shady deal. Evelina did her best to avoid their gaze, feeling like she didn't belong. 3 hours later, she emerged from the courthouse as the rightful owner of the apartment, a hefty sum awarded to her. The judge had unequivocally ruled in her favor, leaving Harry red-faced from the interrogation. Evelina flashed a smile, while Lucas looked on admiringly. She was truly remarkable, but life hadn't exactly been gentle with her. Evelina snatched up the phone, urgency flashing in her eyes. Got to make a call. My daughter's having surgery today. Vivian intercepted the phone, reassuring. Mom, I'm fine. No pain, no fear. Promise. Years later, she stood before her old house, determined to sell it, no matter the price, even if it meant peanuts. She wanted no part of this house anymore. It felt like the last thread tying them to misfortune. Lucas grumbled, You could have told me earlier. I could have sorted something out. We could have torched this place and moved on. Lucas, be civilized, Evelina chided. Vivian burst out of the car, hollering, Mom, check it out! My ball's totally flat over there. She strutted around her yard, ditching all past beef. With her eyes set on hitting up college in England, where her bro was, she was diving headfirst into English studies. Vivian, is that you? Glenn fidgeted near the Gati. Yep, it's me, Vivian chirped back, flashing a grin that made Glenn go red. Where's, her? He stumbled. She's out of the picture. You weren't a fan, remember? Vivian gently jogged his memory. Why you asking? Glenn, flustered, didn't have a comeback. Vivian took pity on him. Wanna take a stroll? It's been forever. What cool spots you got around here? Glenn eagerly nodded, paused for a beat, then offered his arm for Vivian to grab. Lucas raised a curious brow and smirked. That's it, and the guy's out cold. Right on the money. Evelina gawked at him, disbelief written all over her face. I'll keep my trap shut, I swear. Where do these bags go? Glenn adjusted his pace, so Vivian could walk alongside him more easily. They shot the breeze about this and that. Some faces stuck in Vivian's mind while others faded away. But she found it all intriguing. So, what brings you here? Did Mom really decide to sell Never? Vivian frowned. That sucks. Yeah, Things change, and you've really blossomed. No longer the ugly duckling, huh? Vivian, quit it. How could you even say that? You're gorgeous. Glenn sighed, regret evident in his tone. Glenn, give me your number. I want to keep in touch. Seriously? His excitement made Vivian a bit uneasy. Yeah, seriously, Glenn.